James Thomas Morning Blend. I have the pleasure of Ms. Erica Henderson with the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership.
Absolutely.
Let's do that one more time. There's strength in this grip, guys. There's strength in this black woman, I'm telling you. Erica, you know what? I've been meaning and been wanting to talk to you so long about the Promise Zone.
Absolutely.
What is the Promise Zone?
So the Promise Zone is a 10-year federal designation from the Obama administration. St. Louis was designated in 2015. We are a second-round city, and we are the largest Promise Zone in the country out of 22. We are also the only one that crosses jurisdictional boundaries. So this is everything north of Del Mar. Mm-hmm. So the most contiguous areas of concentrated poverty, crime, and unemployment. It's approximately 200,000 residents, 28 municipalities, 11 city boards, 25 zip codes, 7 school districts, and 90% African American.
Wow, that's a lot.
Absolutely.
So being designated, what are the possibilities? What does it mean by Promise Zone?
So when we submitted our application, it was to have a federal attempt to target investment in communities of color. So really, how do we attract federal dollars that can be leveraged at the local level to complement public dollars, private dollars, philanthropic dollars, to put families on a path towards self-sufficiency? How do we change the trajectory for communities that are impoverished? How do we put them on the right path? And how do we develop systems and models that can really have generational impact? So in St. Louis, we do have 6 goals of increasing economic activity, increasing workforce readiness, improving education, improving health and wellness, developing sustainable communities, and reducing crime. So your initial thought, like, that's everything.
Right, yeah.
Right? But it's really, how do we have this comprehensive and holistic approach to the work that we're talking about? Because we recognize that everything feeds off the other.
Right.
You cannot isolate issues, that you need to address the whole person, the whole family, so that you remove barriers to opportunity. How do we have that intentionality around prioritization of communities that have been left behind? How do we empower the voices in community and lend capacity so that they can participate in a way that is meaningful and substantive?
You know, you're talking about the region in St. Louis, especially north of Del Mar, has been neglected for the last 20, 30 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for me, it's always waving the flag that the Promise Zone should be the region's next priority. I would say in 2014, 2015, Dr. Mark Tranel from UMSL University did a study, and it's $14 billion GDP gap because we do not focus on the Promise Zone footprint.
So if we were to focus on that Promise Zone,
prioritize and recognize the economic impact, the economic opportunity, how much that means for the region.
And that's $14 billion?
Billion with a B. And so it's tremendous opportunity if we say, how do we connect you, provide access to the information, access to the opportunities, the resources, to the capital, so that you are on an equitable playing field with other communities, recognizing that we need to walk through a racial equity lens, minimizing some of the biases and the racism that St. Louis is known for. And so how do we make sure that we partner strategically with service providers who are doing this direct work on a daily basis to minimize duplicative efforts, but really that alliance or strategic thinking to say, how do we do this together?
How does the NGA affect the Promise Zone?
Absolutely. So NGA was selected North St. Louis City, one, because it was in a Promise Zone. And so that's a $1.75 billion investment, 3,100 jobs. So it's really an opportunity to change North St. Louis City. But it's also an opportunity for us to say it only changes with the people who live there right now.
Yes.
If you think about people who, you know, the American dream is home ownership. So for the residents who have been there, how do we support them in this effort with this new opportunity that is coming into their community? How do we support minority and women-owned businesses? How do we provide jobs and educational opportunities for people who live surrounding that area? So not just bringing people in from across the country for this tremendous opportunity, but really educating our community on what geospatial is, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
so
What
how
is
do we-
geospatial?
Exactly. So how do we work with the education partners, the health partners, and really back into once that facility will be ready for operation and all of this support entities that will go along with that particular complex, how do we make sure that it is equitable? How do we make sure that it has the opportunity to really change St. Louis as a whole? So not just one project, but how do we build some critical mass that has the ability to expand its tentacles into other areas? And for me, I would say going further north of that particular area, up to Fairground and to some of the other
O'Fallon Park area.
Absolutely. So to some other areas down to the Ville. How do we make sure that this project works for everyone?
Are there any answers yet?
Yeah, so I would say SLDC's team is really working to make sure that we are doing a substantive level of engagement in that surrounding community with Project Connect. We also were successful with getting $30 million Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant from the U.S. Department of HUD. And so that helps to focus on people, neighborhood, and housing. So trying to figure out how do we tie that work together. St. Louis University has been very instrumental of working with the GSA working group to identify educational opportunities. So there's a lot of conversation that is that is happening to say how are we engaging community in a meaningful and purposeful way.
So if we can get, well, we got 1.7 billion, so we need additional 12.3 billion?
Yeah, well, we got a long way to go. So St. Louis has done some tremendous things, right? But we still have a tremendous way to go. And so if you think about where we are as it relates to the civil unrest that happened back in 2014, we're coming up on that 5-year anniversary. Where are we now?
That's a good question.
Where are we now?
Where are we now?
Absolutely. And so it is really talking about not just the systems, right? How have we progressed the people? How have people been able to grow and to move forward, and how have we built their capacity and their power and their ability to be on a path towards economic vitality, right? How have we moved the needle in that way? That is what's important.
That's a very good question that needs to be asked, because I'm quite sure I don't know the answer to that.
There's progress, but there's more work to be done. So we have the 189 calls to action from the Ferguson Commission, the work that is happening around that. We have the dismantling the divide that is happening out of the For the Sake of All. So a lot of reports that are happening now as a region, we need to embrace them. I think that we have been at a stage of awareness of equity, but now it's implementation of what equity looks like. Just because we want things to be equitable does not mean that you get less. It means that the pie grows,
right,
so that we all have the opportunity to participate.
That's interesting. How can our viewers get involved with this?
Absolutely. So the Promise Zone does a litany of events. We also highlight all of the work that our 200 plus partners are doing in community. There's volunteer opportunities. There's opportunities for professional development, learning opportunities. We've hosted a lot of capacity building with growing entrepreneurs, targeting minority entrepreneurs. We have an equitable economic development series that's going on now in partnership with ULI and MidWest Bank Center and the Heartland Black Chamber of targeting communities of color, people of color. How do we teach you how to do to be a developer in your own community? Buy the lot next to you, buy some LRA property, where are the resources to ensure that your project is successful? But really, there's tremendous opportunity to get involved with the Promise Zone. We have a young professionals group. We have a neighborhood leadership academy. Reach out to us, follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, which includes a tremendous amount of funding, workforce development opportunities, just information that should be shared.
So, speaking of sharing, what website can our viewers go to?
Absolutely. It's www.stlpartnership.com/STL Promise Zone.
Promise Zone.
So www.stlpartnership. So partnership and STL Promise Zone. So it's a little confusing. Just Google St. Louis Promise Zone.
We're gonna make sure we're gonna put that on the screen right
there. You go.
Definitely put
it
on.
Go.
You know what? I really appreciate you stopping by and talking about the Promise Zone. You're making me think a little bit more about it and saying how can we get involved and how can the show get involved, and actually how can T-Rex get involved, because you always hear about the innovative community.
Yep.
Where are you guys at when it comes to the Promise Zone?
So I would say we have some partners who are in the process of replicating some of the work that is happening in the Innovation District in areas of opportunity that are targeting people of color, and being welcoming to minorities and women-owned businesses to come into an area to have the opportunity to build and grow their business through incubators and co-working spaces.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us on
You are
Morning
more than
Blend. It's
welcome.
about
Thank you
time.
for
And
having
she's
me.
got a strong grip, believe me,
Thank you
trust
so
me.
much.
Her son back there, he know. James
Thank
Thomas,
you.
Morning Blend, Midwest. No more switches, it's the grip. We'll be right back after this.